Hello, friends. My name is Dan, and some of you know me as Orangesherbet from Twitch TV. What you're listening to is an Untitled podcast where I talk about topics that seem important or interesting. Maybe in the future it will have a title or purpose, but for now, that's it. Today, my guest is a good friend from the Twitch TV community who describes himself as that dude who mods everywhere, or that crazy guy who's climbing a big freaking mountain. It's MellowNebula, ladies and gentlemen. How are you?
I'm doing great today, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and we've been working on the audio here. And I know that it's a work in progress, and it has some quirks to it right now, but it's the best we can do. So, do you recognize where I got that description of you?
I do. I wrote a piece on a fundraising page about a year ago today.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that topic here soon, but I wanted to learn a little bit more about you as we've known each other for how long? You think maybe a year and a half, something like that? It's probably been longer. I don't know.
It's a year and a half minimum, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe we met through Blacklist, a streaming team for Twitch TV. I think that's how we met. I can never remember because you meet so many people and it's hard to keep track. I
I know for sure that I met you through the blacklist, although I have no recollection of how. But
Twitch is it just becomes a big family. You end up knowing more and more people every day from all around the world, really. The first thing I wanted to know about you, and this isn't just a straight up interview, but it's kind of a jumping off point. Your name. It's something that I think you've explained once or twice, but I always forget. Like,
I may have, yeah.
how did you get your name? The current one you have.
The current one I have. I've gone through a lot of names over the years. I've never really stuck with one in particular. But when I first signed up for Twitch, I I kind of liked the word mellow on the day, and I went through a strange thing in my head that I do sometimes. And so when I thought of the word mellow, which I liked, the word yellow popped into my head, and then the Beatles song Yellow Submarine popped into my head as well. So my original name on Twitch was actually Mellow Sub. And for a while, like I did not really like the name. It wasn't something I wanted to stick with long term. But everyone came to know me as Mellow. So when I made the following name, the one I have now, which is MellowNebula, I just I kept the mellow in there, and I included something about space, which is something I've always loved.
I see. Well, that's a lot deeper than I thought it was, and I definitely haven't heard that story before. I mean, you had kind of mellow in your head, and I had Orangesherbet on my hands. That's the difference between us two. I was more literal, and you were deep into the gray matter when you thought of your name. Because I was, yeah, I never really expected to keep the username for very long. I thought that I didn't think that Twitch was a dying thing, but I thought it was something I was going to lose interest in. So I went for a few months without even having a username. I had been streaming in late 2011 to record a game I was playing called APB Reloaded, and then when I stopped playing the game, I actually deactivated my account, and my account was MK Prime, which was named after another very original name named after a StarCraft 2 player named Marine King Prime. If you've probably don't know who that is, but
No,
yeah.
I used to watch a lot of StarCraft casts actually.
So that's the history of my name, and I don't know. It's like, um, I don't know. There's a band called the Goo Goo Dolls, and they always wish they could change their name, but once they reach some sort of success, they just couldn't change it anymore. So I always compare it to that. It's like, well, you can change your name, but no one's going to know you anymore. And those guys actually were a band for about a decade before they actually got successful. So those guys had 10 years, you know. For me, I had it for, I don't know, I had it for a few months before I started streaming. So, But your motives for streaming were a little bit different than some other people. You know, for myself, I was streaming to record gameplay, and for you, you got on to with kind of different motives. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
It's yeah. So I mean, I think we'll talk about how I came to Twitch and all that stuff in a little while here, but because I initially wasn't a streamer, I had no intention of being a streamer of any sort. I've never really felt that was my calling in life. Uh, but the reason I started broadcasting and streaming was that I've been approached with the opportunity to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in support of a charity that I'd always been passionate about and supported over the years. And what I wanted to do was, like, I'd been involved in several communities around Twitch, and I felt that Twitch was a great way for me to. I'd met a lot of people, generous, amazing, wonderful people who supported me, and I reached out to a couple of streamers that I knew, and they were interested in the project, and they encouraged me to start streaming, and they really got me started, and I felt like it was a great way for me to accomplish my goals whilst also just doing something that I enjoy.
And that's, you know, a very honorable way to do it. I think a lot of people, when they get started, it's because of the person they watched, you know. Even myself, someone who has, you know, a small following, I hear from quite a few of my friends now that they do streams and they really like it. It's something that kind of get addicted to, and it's the people. It's really what it is. Twitch has got a lot of good people surrounding it, and within it, the viewers. You know. So, uh, and how long? What was your first day that you streamed? Do you remember kind of the month and the year? I mean, I guess it was last year, right?
Yeah, it was beginning of last year, January or February, I think.
Okay. And this.
And my first streaming experience was just like anyone else's. It was balls to the wall, very very rough, and I don't know how I pushed through it, but I did really enjoy myself. If I didn't, I wouldn't have continued doing it. I would have found some other way of doing what I'd set out to do.
I guess it's like kind of like with this podcast. I don't even know if you can call this a podcast. It's just a conversation, but yeah, it was a little rough when we started. But I think that it was different for you because when you started broadcasting, I keep calling it that. It's actually I usually call it streaming, but uh, you had a few people there that were going to be watching you, and you were already friends with these people, right? So you had,
Yeah, that was I was very very fortunate in that regard.
but it also put a little bit of pressure on you to put on a show because it wasn't like you were broadcasting out to the internet. It was to a few close friends who already knew you, so you immediately
Yeah, for
had
the most
some
part.
chat interaction. You immediately had those people to chat with.
I did, yeah. For the most part, there were other streamers actually, people that I watched and people who I looked up to for advice, and they supported me unconditionally. I hadn't established myself as a streamer yet. I was more of a lurker. I didn't really interact much on Twitch, but when I reached out to them, they seemed interested in what I was doing. Um, I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, but it was something I'm very very grateful for to this day.
Well, I think you're a good person and just a very chill streamer to watch. To be honest, I think the game that I watched you play first was one of the Mass Effect games, if I remember right. Um,
I did the entire Mass Effect series.
oh,
That was one of my probably my most successful series of streams. I had a really great time. I'd never played those games before, and so I had a lot of new people coming in who were quite experienced with the game and they were following the game. and we interacted, and it was just I don't know. I have very, very fond memories of those streams. They're some of my favorite streams that I've done.
Very cool. So, just staying with the Twitch theme, recently you've been doing a little bit more behind the scenes with the Twitch community. Would you like to talk about any of that?
Sure, yeah. So I've been on Twitch for 2.5, 3 years maybe now. It's been a long time. Um, I've been thinking about how I first, like my journey and how I came to be involved in Twitch in general, just as a viewer, is quite interesting. Just I was reflecting on it the other day, and we'll get into that in a bit, I think. But yeah, at the moment, I started moderating chats a couple of years ago, and it was something I'd never moderated anything before. I was a complete amateur, but it was something I just took to and I really enjoyed. And people seemed to think that I was pretty good at it from the outset, and that kind of just caught on and kept snowballing. But after a while, I felt like I wanted to do more. I wanted to keep contributing to the community. So I do a lot of work outside of individual streams, and even outside the teams that I'm a part of. So I've always been as helpful as I could be to other users. So I began helping out on the Twitch support Twitter feed, and after a while, several months in fact, one of the admins reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to be part of our volunteer team to field some questions? You seem to know a lot about Twitch, and you know conduct yourself in a professional manner, and that's what we're looking for. So would you like to volunteer? It's not. I don't work for Twitch in any official capacity. I volunteer my time and my knowledge that I've accumulated, and in turn, I've learned a lot during that time, and I feel like I'm in a pretty good position to just provide people with the support that they're looking for. Yeah,
And that's an important job because there's a lot that goes on Twitch. It's a growing website with undoubtedly a lot of issues that take place any hour of the day. I've seen the Twitch support Twitter light up sometimes.
it's true. Yeah, Twitch support Twitter. If there's a large issue that's site wide, the support team, which is quite small, the staff who run the staff who are part of the Twitch support team it's quite a small crew. So if there's a large scale issue, they'll tweet out and they'll notify users that there's a problem, and they'll fix the problem, and they'll keep people in the loop. But in the day to day, it's mostly volunteers who answer questions because it's such a small team of staff in the support group that they can't necessarily get to every single tweet. So the volunteers really, they're kind of the backbone of not necessarily the backbone of the support team entirely, but they have a really high responsibility in interacting with users in a professional manner. So it can be a tough job and it can be challenging, and there are issues, no doubt, that the Twitch experiences and people will tell you. But yeah, it's just another means of shit.
Let's.
Oh man.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to my brain.
Well, let's be honest. The help section through the Twitch site itself is kind of lacking at the moment. I think it needs a redesign. If you click on help, you can kind of search for topics, but the bulk of the support, the instant stuff comes from Twitter. So that's probably something that the general user does not even know. They probably don't even know that there's volunteers out there like yourself that are working hard to keep things communicated, I guess, and running properly. They can ask questions about really anything related to them trying to get their stream online or keeping it online. That's usually what it's about. Or if there's a site issue, with the chat or something like that. A lot of times the
Yeah, I
chat servers have
100%
issues.
agree with you that the help boards, the public help boards, are not. They could be improved. They could definitely be improved in a lot of respects.
And let me just look at the Twitch site really quick. I don't think that it's very prominently located on the page either. You kind of have to look for it.
The contact form.
Yeah, all of that stuff. There's not like a big help me button somewhere. You kind of have to scroll down to find it.
No, and a lot of users assume that when they submit a question to the public boards, it's going to get an answer from staff. That's not
Yeah,
necessarily true. They can't monitor those boards 24/7 in real time. So
yeah.
the best way to get in touch with staff about a support issue is really, if you're looking for something instant and pretty simple, you can tweet them, and someone will see it and respond to you right away. If not as soon as possible. The other way is on that help page, you can scroll to the bottom and there's a button that says send us an email. And that will submit a support ticket, which is guaranteed a human response from a staff member at Twitch. So that's really the best way if you if you have a support issue, that's the best way to reach them, not simply posting on the public boards.
So, what would you say the most common question that you field, or if you're paying attention, what do you think the most common thing is?
It depends, really. It changes now and then. Some of the most common issues that we deal with on the Twitter feed are Xbox One support issues with problems with the app. And usually it's just because a user hasn't configured their settings correctly. And there are help pages on setting up your Xbox for broadcasting via the Xbox One app. But a lot of people seem to miss those steps. And so it's really just quite simple information that we can provide on the spot to get those people up and broadcasting.
You see, you're on your way to being a Twitch staff member at some point, perhaps. Would that be something you'd be open to in the future?
Well, if the opportunity ever came up, it's something I would definitely be interested in. It's not something I ever set out to do, though.
But your current location, unless it was a telecommuting job, you'd have to move. How would you feel about that? I mean, these are just hypotheticals.
Yeah, that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of opportunities at Twitch. If you browse the careers page, which is I recommend that you do if you are interested in working at Twitch,
Yep.
there are several opportunities. These things pop up around the world. They have an office in London, the UK, and some other places. They're always looking for people who have particular skill sets. I don't necessarily have those qualifications, and I'm not really in a position where I can relocate internationally. But there are some things that are open to people from around the world. For example, Twitch admins, Twitch administrators, they can work from anywhere.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it might be something that could come up. You never know when a job will open up.
No, you never know, and they do advertise any positions. They're looking for network engineers, people with um, legal skills in the legal field, things like that. Professionals in marketing, and they're always expanding into new areas. So that careers page is the best place for that kind of thing.
Very nice. And something that I watched, was Survivor Games last week? It was last Sunday, right?
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to watch that?
Yeah, I did actually. I haven't missed a Survivor Games since I've been on Twitch. It's actually the event that brought me to Twitch.
That's funny. Yeah, they do a great job setting it up. I felt bad about the outcome, just because of all the issues they were having. It's hard to say what one thing went wrong, but it seemed like a lot of things were stacking up for those guys. There was a lot of network issues, and servers had to be restarted a few times. But overall, it was fairly entertaining to watch. It's it's a game that I can watch, but if every time I try to play Daisy standalone, I just have the worst experience. I don't know what it is. I tried it for about 5 to 10 minutes the other night, and it didn't go well. I think I found out that the server, I had a really bad connection to it. My desync was in the thousands, so that was just a bad start for me. When's the last time that you played Daisy?
Fairly recently, I think. I'll hang in a lot of team speaks with other streamers and moderators and friends that I've made over the years on Twitch, and a lot of them do. So it's, I was, it was probably I was playing with I win you lose lol, who's also a streamer on the Blacklist, and we have a Blacklist Daisy server, and so I hop in there from time to time and play with the guys.
I think what I need to do if I attempt to play that game again is play with someone who has played lately, and that way they can say, "Oh no, that server sucks. We need to find another one," or, this is what you need to do. This is what's changed. Because I felt lost and confused, and I just couldn't do it. I know how to play the game. I was just having a hell of a time. I don't know. The zombies looked really glitchy, and I couldn't hit them with anything. Essentially, not consistently, anyways. But I think that was due to my desync, like I was
Yeah,
saying.
it can be a tough game, especially I know you're not new to the game, but for people experiencing the game for the first time, I can only imagine what their experience is like. But it is an early access game, and it's quite clear that it's still in its early stages of development, and these things happen.
You know, I'm confused on what happened to game development, because all of a sudden we have all of these early access games, and I know that it takes a while to develop something, but um, how long is an average game in development for, regardless of early access, like before it reaches version 1.0? I would think that it would be capped off somewhere in 3 years. You should have your game done.
I would say for a large studio, that would be a fair assessment. It would definitely vary, I'd say, by the scope of the project and the people involved. I'm not really in a position to comment on that kind of thing. I've never
Yeah, I
worked in the
know.
games industry.
Me either, but just thinking about large studio games that are announced and how long they've been worked on. I guess that's a bad way to judge it, because anything that's in early access is there um, generally to raise some cash for their project and try to spur things along. Really, um, what other
Yeah,
reason?
and it could
Yeah.
be. I imagine with early access, I don't know. I haven't studied it to any real extent. But a lot of these things, they might be the studio's first project ever, and so they don't really know realistically how things are going to go and what kind of time frames they're going to be working with. Because even with large scale projects, you see things pushed back all the time. Things come up that are unexpected, and they just have to deal with them. And these smaller studios might not have the resources to or the experience to carry through a project in a particular way.
And that's a very intelligent way to look at it. But if you're a gamer and you bought something, regardless of what the disclaimer says, people really seem to jump the gun and judge the product, regardless if it's early access or not. So it's an unavoidable consequence. I knew what I was getting into when I bought Daisy. I actually, a lot of times when I buy into these games, because I know I'm interested and I know I'm getting a discount over what the price will be eventually. And that wasn't the case with Killing Floor 2. That game, I believe, is going to stay at $30. I don't think it's going to get any more expensive. But all the other games, like Daisy, 7 Days to Die, Savage Lands, H1Z1, Reign of Kings, Stranded Deep, um, Grav. I could just off the top of my head, that's a lot of games, and they're all kind of pigeonholed into the same genre, although all those games are a lot different. How many of those games do you own, or just a rough percentage? 50%, 75%.
Of the ones you listed in that category, probably only DayZ and Rust. I don't really go
Oh
into
yeah,
the early access things myself a whole lot.
huh. For some reason, I I don't know. Lately, I've been with a lot of peer pressure people because we were like, oh, we're not going to buy any more games until GTA 5, and then like three games after that, yeah, it adds up after a while, but it's fun, I guess, and glitchy. The What I do with the early access games, I'll play them and shelve them for a month or two, and then come back because then there'll undoubtedly be some updates.
Yeah, I've come across some horror stories with early access games. I think the important one of the things that's important to me at least is with a game like DayZ. Um, as a player, you do feel engaged with the development team, and that you're in the loop as things progress. And with a lot of early access games, that's not the case. People aren't necessarily being informed of what they might be getting into and where the thing is going. So that to me is something that I would probably avoid something like that.
I hear what you're saying there. Yeah, when you when you buy a game, you're pretty much there's really no refunds. So you have to make sure your purchase is worth it. And if it's a developer you don't even know, you're not sure, well, this project could just get canceled at some point or not worked on anymore. There's been a few examples of that through the Steam early access history. The Stomping Lands. Did that game come back to Steam? I think the development has stopped on that. But for the most part, you kind of know what you're getting into, and you kind of cringe a little bit sometimes when you buy something. I know that I wish now that I hadn't purchased H1Z1 because it's kind of just I was kind of just throwing money at them, and I could have played it for free when it came out officially, which is probably going to be a long time from now. It might not even be this year. Who knows? But the curiosity just killed me. I had to try it.
Yeah, I think we've all been pretty liberal with our game purchases at some point, and it's come back to bite us. But that's the state the market's in. I wish it weren't, but
That's how it is. Gamers, they can't help themselves. You make something, it's just like anything. You make something kind of sought after, or it's rare. Like you can buy it. It's going to be free to play, but you can buy it now for 19.99. And they put it up for sale, and the site like crashes, right? Because everyone's trying to buy it. Same thing when um Daisy Standalone, when that came out, everyone rushed to buy it. You could buy it from the Bohemia site, and their Bohemia site crashed. Remember that?
I do. Yeah. My initial reaction, the initial release of DayZ for me, I felt like they'd released it too early. I really didn't like what I saw in the initial stages, but seeing where it's at now, I'm quite happy with how development's been going, and I hope to see that they keep continuing in the way that they've been going with the way that they deal with the community at large.
This is something that people probably don't think of when they play. I bet some gamers do, but eventually Daisy will be open to modding, and there could be different maps and that sort of thing that will get passed around. I kind of wonder a couple of things. I wonder. I wonder if Chernarus Plus will be opened to Arma 3. And I also wonder if someone will make a mod where they just remove the zombies. I think the game would be better without zombies. I'm just saying. They don't add anything to it for me anymore. Your thoughts?
My thoughts. I've never really been a fan of the zombies either. Um, at least in the mod, they felt like because they would come in waves and be they would add something to the game in terms of the way the people played. To an extent now with kind of house, it's more beneficial to say try to be stealthy as you move through a town and things like that. I think that's a step in the right direction. But I've never felt that zombies were particularly. They're not at all the most important element of that game in terms of driving players.
It's it's a multitude of things, but they've never worked properly. And you remember fondly about the mod, but if you go back now and play it, the zombies still suck. They nerfed them so they don't do as much damage, but they still suck. They're easier to kill just because of the way the melee weapons work and everything else. But I don't know. They just they've never felt right to me, and I don't think that melee. I don't think it can be argued that melee combat in Arma or Daisy standalone has been ever good. You can't really consider it that way. It works sometimes, but it's not like any other game that you play. It doesn't feel kind of feels like, oh, I hope it hits, right? Oh, I hope it hits something. That's the way it is for me. I don't know. There's probably a skill to it. Essentially, it's just shooting a short range bullet, right in front of your character.
It is because it started out from a military sim game that was never intended to include things like this.
Yeah. So I didn't expect to talk about Daisy standalone so much. I don't know. I guess I was thinking of it, but yeah, just to go back to Survivor games, which is what we originally were talking about. The victors, repeat champions there, and then they had a little bit. They didn't have a controversy, but they had a bit of a mistake with who got second place there. But was it second place or third place? Second place, right?
Which team are you referring to?
Well, it was Anthony Kong fan and who was he playing with? See, this is where I'm kind of losing track of what I'm talking about because I didn't have this information in front of me. But anyways, yeah, they did make a mistake on who got second or third place. I could probably look that up, but yeah, it was due to some of the server restarts that they had to do. But everyone is good sports that plays, and I know just from my experience being in the Survivor games, they're really nice, just really nice, and it's good for the community. And what was awesome back the Survivor Games 3 I was in is that they gave me a chance, and none of them really knew who I was. They maybe came and watched my stream for a second or something. But yeah, they give people who are newer to Twitch, they give them a chance to, put their name in the hat, and I don't know, it's a random game. You never know who's gonna win. You might be.
Speaking of not people without names and not established streamers, and the Survivor Games being a platform for potentially launching smaller streamers. The Survivor Games is how I met a guy who goes by XMac,
Right.
who at the time was somebody that nobody in the scene had heard of.
Wow, that's cool, man. I came across XMac through a friend, and the first time that I watched him was it was a bad day for him. He had someone who was trolling him. There was a donation troll that was going around, and he got screwed over. And I think I watched him the day after, and Smack was so mad about it. Well, I think he was. I don't know if mad is the word. He was mad or frustrated or something. So I had a weird first impression of him. But then I went back and watched him, and I loved it. And I don't know, it was great. Um, him inviting me to the blacklist was something that kept me streaming because I was about to stop at that point, but it gave me a big boost because someone was actually noticing what I was doing. I hadn't sought him out. He got a recommendation from Tac Impulse, if remember Tac.
STB something, yeah.
Yep. So that. But yeah, if people are interested in the Survivor games, they are. Oh, the application's closed today, so hopefully people got in on that. Or if not, then so be it. And
Yeah, but they do. They run a qualifier every second month and a main event again in the months in between. So every single month there'll be an event, and yeah, I do recommend that people look out for them on their forums and on their Twitter to get involved in these events because they really are open to anyone.
And just to reiterate, the first place for Survivor Games was Psy Syndicate and Cat. Second place was Sacriel and Break. And third place went to Dimitri and Kiwo. So that was that. They had to change third place. I hate just saying stuff if I don't know the facts behind it. I don't want to just be saying stuff just to say it. There was one thing that happened on Twitch that really didn't get talked about a lot, and I wanted to know your opinion on it. I know kind of the outline of the story. I wasn't there, but there's an EDM artist known as Borgor who had a stream that happened last week, end of last week, right? Middle or end of last week. But it was essentially like a house party, and there's DJs, and he's infamous for the female form. We'll just say that. The booty. He likes that. So if you go to his Twitter feed, it has all of that on there. And I was curious if Twitch endorsed his stream and was promoting it, which I don't know if they were or not. They ended up having to shut his stream down because he broke the TOS in a few different ways. But I'm curious. This kind of sets a precedent for everything, really. Twitch is looking to expand their scope of what kind of entertainment they have on there, but they're still saying, stick to our PG-13 rules, essentially. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're a big, well-known music artist or, just Joe Blow streamer, you gotta follow the TOS.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Is I believe said streamer had been warned about similar behavior in the past, and that's generally the way things go. If you don't follow the rules and you've been warned about it, then what else is Twitch going to do?
Now, they kind of let it slide with Ultra because that was a harder thing to control, I'm assuming. I didn't watch all of the Ultra stream. I watched some of it, mostly just kind of listening to it, to be honest. But people had said that they had accidentally shown drug use and maybe even partial nudity and all of that, but I can imagine that they did their best to keep that to a minimum. I kind of wonder, though.
Yeah.
That kind of limits. It's in a way it kind of limits their scope because that's a little bit of what if you watch network television, what do you see? You see kind of sex and violence and the typical stuff that people like to watch, right? If you watch Twitch, you kind of get some music, which is actually I'd mention that first, but mostly it's people playing video games, and then there's a little bit of music, and that's kind of a growing community, but you don't get the same things as you can see on TV. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. But it's good because they understand that if they make some kind of a precedent where it's okay to show certain things, like I don't know, like they were showing bare asses basically on the Borgor stream. If they set a precedent, well, that's okay in this context. But if you're just a video game streamer and you're doing that for whatever reason, it's not okay. So I guess props to them for sticking to their guns, but I wonder what that means for the future, and if Twitch will get a reputation as being kind of like I don't know, the strict parent or something like that. Whereas you go on Ustream and it can be, anything except nudity, full nudity, I would assume.
I don't really know about how Ustream is is administrated, but with Twitch and this particular case, I would say that there are elements with the music industry that, I mean, Twitch has been expanding into the music industry for a little while. We've been experimenting with it. Um, but there are elements of that music culture that don't really mesh well with uh, what Twitch has been doing with their terms of service and their rules of conduct. And if those things don't translate, they don't fit in well with what Twitch is trying to build, then yeah, I feel like those rules should apply to everyone.
Well, I'm not saying that it's wrong what they're doing. I guess the point that I made was that it limits their scope, and I don't know of another word to describe it. Let's just take different segments of music and I guess use kind of stereotypes about it. I'll just say there's certain types of music where the artists wouldn't want to not be themselves. If they had to tone themselves down just to be on Twitch, it might be something that makes them decide not to do it, not to want to stream. Because well, what's Twitch all about? It's the live experience. So if it's a rap performance, if it's a rock performance, if it's EDM, something like that. Seems like EDM is what has translated to Twitch the most. Would you agree with that?
I would absolutely, yeah.
So it's kind of it made me think about it. The music section on Twitch might be just primarily EDM for the near future because I don't know. There's probably rock bands that practice on Twitch. I don't browse the music section too often. I have a friend that is in a band. He's the drummer, and I considered asking him to stream sometime, but it takes a lot of good production to make a rock band sound good. Even if they're practicing, because it can kind of come out sounding like you record it with your cell phone or something.
Yeah, I don't know the logistics of setting up a music stream on Twitch, especially if you're incorporating, the whole
Yeah,
live performance is something that is an art, and streaming just kind of adds another level to things that could potentially, you need to tweak things to get things working right. But um, I love that uh, people are able to create original music and showcase their content on Twitch. I think it's great.
I agree. But there's some of these lingering topics that come up, and it's worth talking about. I think because it's not like once they put their foot down that someone's not gonna try to skirt the rules or act out because people are crazy and sometimes maybe they do something they don't even maybe they didn't read the terms of service before they started streaming or in Borgor's case that's just who he is, that's what he does, so he was just like, I'm gonna be myself, and if they don't like it, then I guess that's it. That's it. But yeah, the next thing, I didn't have a very smooth transition there. Apparently today there uh was it Heroes of the Storm they were playing on ESPN2? They're really trying to push that game as a MOBA. I'm not too well versed in the whole MOBA thing. Never played League of Legends, never really enjoyed the content myself. I don't know why. I just can never It's like the aesthetic of the game itself. Um, I don't know. Even like Dota, the original Dota, that's something that I did try. My friends were into it. I wasn't. I just didn't like it.
Oh, the Warcraft mod. Yeah, a lot of my friends were into that as well.
So
I've never been into the MOBA scene either. I do watch a lot of esports. MOBA is not something that's gripped me, but I think with the current climate in the esports scene, that MOBAs are they have a very big draw, particularly League of Legends at the moment. But I believe, yeah, Blizzard they would like for Heroes of the Storm to be up there.
that's a pretty crazy. I wonder what kind of bid they had to make to get that on ESPN too. My goodness. But apparently Artosis and Day 9 called the game on ESPN2, and that's pretty cool. I wonder what the prizes were. I'm not sure. But people were kind of freaking out, sports fans expecting to tune into ESPN2 and see some, I don't even know what's, I guess maybe some Sports Center or baseball or something going on. I don't have cable, so I don't really watch ESPN, but they also had the X Games had some esports tournaments recently too, and I think isn't the summer X Games gonna have? They're going to have esports tournaments again. People like watching it. I mean, it's not something that's going away.
No, and it's exciting to see it grow. Yeah, MLG X Games. They have been. I watched an event recently. It was very well produced and it was very professional. There was a lot of interest in it. I don't know.
Yeah, but
I don't
that's
know, like you say about how traditional sports audiences are going to react to this kind of content, but it is growing. It's not in some places around the world. It's very much acceptable and it is the norm. But we're still kind of learning how people how it's going to work, I guess.
I can imagine they would react the same way that someone who didn't know what American football was like forced to go to a game and watch it and like just like throw their hands up there like what is going on. For me, I like both sports and esports. So I don't know because I don't know I came from a background of watching sports and playing video games. I think there's a lot of gamers that kind of relate to that, but there's also the opposite. Those that watch sports and think that video games are for nerds or they just don't understand it. So I can understand that side. Are you well versed in the sports? Any sports with balls?
Any sports with balls. Hmm.
What do they play down there?
In Australia, well, to add it to the mix, we
Rugby?
also have football, but it's not American football, and it's not
Right.
the football that you would expect in Europe either.
Oh,
It's
it's
something a bit
Australian
different.
rules. Australian rules football.
Yeah, it's a little
Oh,
bit different. I've never been
yeah.
a fan of it. I don't ask me to explain it. I don't know why it's even a thing. But no, the only real traditional sports that I watch would be the NHL, hockey, things like that.
Interesting. I wouldn't taken you for an NHL guy, but that is interesting. Something about NHL regular season games is like regular season NBA games. If you feel like the effort, it's not there's like not as much to play for, so the intensity isn't there. But if you watch playoff hockey or basketball, any you can say that about any sport, but particularly those two, as a spectator, I notice the effort is way higher in the playoffs than it is. It's almost like in the first beginning of the season, they're just feeling out like what they should be doing and still coming together as a team. I don't know. Just a random thought.
Yeah, no, you could make I suppose analogies between sports like that and with esports, and they do have playoffs in large major events with esports, and it's difficult to, I guess, if you're a new viewer, to discern between the significance of an event, whether it's a large
Mm.
playoff or just a game, you know?
Well, you'll notice when you watch, because I'm into watching Counter Strike Global Offensive. I'm not into playing it, but I'm into watching it. And StarCraft 2 to a much lesser extent. But uh, the really good teams look really good all of the time. And the teams that don't quite make it will sometimes play down to a team that's not as good, or sometimes lose because they play a little bit too loose. So, but the parity when it comes to Counter Strike is fairly good right now, except for in the U.S. scene. It's a little lukewarm right now, but internationally, it's very even right now when it comes to teams. You really never know who's going to win. But I don't do any of the skins or betting or anything that the kids do nowadays, so I'm not into that at all.
Oh no, I'm not into that stuff either. But yeah, I agree what you're saying about the North American scene. It's gone through some changes recently. Overall, though, with the what I was getting at before with the in terms of playoffs and major events and things is that more of them are popping up, and you'll see that a lot of different organizations are involved. We've got ESL, DreamHack, you've got MLG, you've got a lot of a lot of very big names
Yeah.
on the field there. And production quality, I would say you can like there was the recent events in Poland at Katowice. Like you'd watch, and it was this massive stage and a huge spectacle, and it was very the electric crowds. It was very exciting to watch. Um, they are, I think, esports is kind of raising the bar in that regard, and whether that eventually translates into the mainstream sports media, I don't know. But
It's it's almost like it's okay where it is, and I don't see it I don't see it fully crossing over unless there's a network. But the thing is that the TV networks they're not dying, but they're just kind of stagnating right now. I don't think you could really say that there's one network that's just excelling over all everyone else, unless you're talking about like HBO with their successful series, whatever. But if they were to start a new like esports network, I don't know what they'd call it. Like they'd call it just esports network or something like that. But I don't know if that sounds like a very good idea. It seems like they're kind of dipping their feet in the water and see what the temperature is here, and before they make a huge investment. But there's a lot of advertisers already on board with these tournaments. I'm sure a lot of them would be eager to spend their advertising dollars to a very large audience. But the tournaments on Twitch reaching over 100,000 viewers, that's no small potatoes. I mean, that's a very large audience on its own. Maybe they don't need a TV network. Maybe Twitch is just the answer now that you can use it on all platforms. It's like, hello, we're here, and the website stability has improved. They can handle everything. They recently got bought out, so they got all these extra resources to use. I guess online content delivery is the future. But beyond the VOD system, what does Twitch have, to compete with people with DVRs? I mean, not everyone can be there when it's live. Because people like to have their day structured, because they have to work 9 to 5, whatever. They come home, they do some work around the house, make some dinner, and then they settle in for the evening, right? And they want to watch something. That's what a lot of people do. It's a common thing for people to do. They like to have a little bit of entertainment in the evening. So people like games, come to Twitch. But thinking about esports content delivery, kind of wonder where that's going to be going. The events are fine, but I don't know. There's beginning to be almost too much for people to watch when it comes to that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety out there. For me in particular, being in the time zone that I'm in, it can be difficult to catch an event live. If it is an exceptional event that I definitely want to make time for, then I'll make time for it to catch it live, just because I prefer the live experience, not knowing results beforehand and things like that. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, it's not something I came prepared to talk about. It's just something that kind of came up. I wish I would have done a little bit more research and thought that point out better. But and I enjoy it, but I always wonder how things are going to scale. You know, market becomes too saturated, and then what happens? Everyone's scrambling to get their money back. But a lot of these tournaments are well funded and all of that. So for now, it looks good. Future is bright. Um, I guess I would be doing a disservice if we didn't bring up the topic of the week when it came to dissonance and saltiness and whatever that's been going on Reddit and Twitter. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. The Steam Workshop.
yeah, yeah, definitely
So,
know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's just when you say that people are salty, it's well,
what?
it's
How
probably
much?
something I
How
don't
much
know.
salt? What type of salt? No. So Valve implemented a major change to the Steam Workshop that gives modders the option to sell their creations directly to gamers in an open, unregulated market. I'm reading this off PCGamer.com. It was not well received in the early hours of it, um, but there were some game developers that spoke out, in support. I didn't really hear any game developers that were not in support of this. Um, did you have any kind of general thoughts about this whole decision?
I have a few scattered thoughts on the subject. Yeah, like you said, a lot of developers seem to either welcome the change or feel like it's not necessarily going to affect them. They may not make use of it. That's entirely up to them. I don't have strong opinions on the subject, no, but I would
Yes.
like to think that cool heads can prevail and that we can find a way of moving forward. Because I do think it is it's definitely an interesting concept.
It's
Perhaps I think the execution is something that a lot of people seem to have problems with.
Yeah, I wish they would have picked a different game to launch with. However, it seems like Skyrim, which was the game that they launched this service with, um, as of that story, had 19 paid mods listed for it, ranging from 30 cents to $7. But there's a lot of problems that go along with it. That thus is anything that's kind of before it's that's not really before its time, but it's a new thing, and when there's money involved, there's always going to be drama, especially when it's something that's open and unregulated. But I'm assuming that these mods have the thumbs up, thumbs down thing, right? And I believe there's a 24-hour refund policy.
There is a 24-hour refund policy. Yeah, if you're not satisfied with the 24 hours, you can request a refund. No questions, I believe.
Before I'm going to spend a cent on something in the Steam Workshop, I'm going to read every letter that the person writes. I'm going to click on their profile and see what they've made before and what kind of reviews they've gotten. Same thing as if I was buying a toaster off of Amazon. If the toaster has had issues of starting on fire, I'm not going to buy it. That seems silly, right? Even if it's 50 cents, Because what good is a toaster that doesn't work? It's not very good, is it? Well, if a mod sucks, what's the point? So I think it'll take care of itself. I think that I think the community will back things that have merit, and they will viciously go after people who screw up. So I don't know. You see how the pendulum sways more towards the negative than the positive. If someone makes something that's really good, um, chances are they'll receive some praise. But if you screw up and you slight somebody, oh boy, you better be ready for the consequences. But the guy who made Gary's mod, Gary Newman, he kind of did a little write up that summed up, I guess, the cooler heads about it. You know, he says that I sold a mod once and everyone was angry that it was happening until it happened, and then they got a much better product than they'd have gotten when it was released for free. Then they seemed to calm down a bit. It has given me a career for 10 years. It's bought me 2 houses, a bunch of cars. It's created a company that has hired 30 plus people. I mean, you can't really argue with that, you know. I guess Counter-Strike, the original Counter-Strike was a mod first, and that guy accepted a buyout by Valve as well. But yeah, he goes on to say some stuff won't be worth charging for. Some people won't want to pay for their stuff. If a mod takes 10 seconds to make and someone wants to charge $10 for it, then they won't sell any copies because it's not worth it. This is how the market balances itself. They'll either have to lower their price or make it worth the price. So it was kind of a no shit thing for me. I never really freaked out about anything. I don't know, man. I guess I'm not as immersed in that. I don't know. Like the gamers' rights thing, like Rage Against the Developers. I don't really get into those debates because if I make a mistake spending money on something, it's on me because I should have looked into it before I bought it. Most of the time. Sometimes shit happens, but other times I'm just like, well, there's plenty of other games to play, so if one of them doesn't work, I'll just kind of toss it aside for a little bit. But yeah, he was definitely one of the developers that kind of stood up in support of it, but I think anybody would. I think that, would you agree that anything that adds value to a game is positive? Whether it be a paid mod or a free mod, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, it gets a little tricky though, because if you think about, I was talking to AWOL about this. He's the creator of Epoch Mod for Arma 3. He's worked on that project for, oh man, year and a half. It'll be going on 2 years since Arma 3 Alpha came out. But, you know, talking about specifically Arma 3, if there was a paid workshop for that, how that would play out. Because what are you going to do with, you know, releasing these, the modders for Arma 3, there isn't a lot of large mod packs. Like, I call it a mod pack because, I don't know, it's not just one weapon. It's like it's a full conversion mod. You download that and you play with all sorts of different custom assets. Epoch Mod, you know. It's not a lot of mods that compare to that for Arma 3. There's a few, but there's not like 20. There's maybe 10, right? I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 that have players, active players, you know, for multiplayer. So if you go on Armaholic, there's any number of free mods you can get for Arma 3, mostly single player experiences, or, you know, maybe a single weapon, or I don't know, a script or something. So I don't know. Doesn't seem like it really fits Arma 3, but it could happen. Because the spirit of modding for Arma 3 was always, you know, free and open source for the most part.
Well, in the past, still continues to this day, I believe, is that charging for your mods on Arma 3 is prohibited. So I don't know what this new um, Valve initiative is going to change in that regard, if anything. But it's an interesting development. I wouldn't say that nothing will change in terms of armor mods. I mean, it could.
It's just the logistics of it. Even it's like, let's say, let's just compare two games. I don't know, a game with like microtransactions, or oh, let's just say Skyrim. Let's say there's a Skyrim mod that you have to buy that like gives you an awesome set of armor and weapons, or it's like an HD pack of some sort. If you were to like go over to Arma 3 and say, okay, well here's some clothing for your player and I don't know, different skins for your guns. Like how do you even are you allowed to use that on your multiplayer server? I mean, but then what happens to the players that connect to the server? Do they have to buy the mod too? Is it going to be integrated? Could it possibly be integrated the way that they have their DLC, where you get like a pop up? It's like a DLC browser to connect to this server. You need, this mod, this mod, this mod, and here's how much they cost. If you want to play here, you can buy them right now. It's only going to cost you like $10 to connect to the server. I don't know. I just don't.
Yeah, that would be horrible, and I believe completely detrimental to the armor community at large.
Yeah, just for armor, I don't think unless it's something that helps server admins administrate better. If there was a tool that was released, pay to purchase through the Steam Workshop, that could work because it doesn't affect the end user. But anything that's gonna, um, anything like I just described sounds just terrible. It sounds like that would never work.
I don't think cosmetics and small. I don't think. I mean, there are some, I suppose, cosmetic-ish mods for armor, but I don't think those kind of things. I don't think they'll do well if they were to be sold in a marketplace, and I don't think servers would. I mean, I can see, for example, a large overhaul mod being taken up by a community within a server, and for a player to have to purchase certain content in order to play on that server. But that's a little bit different. I don't think it would be. It would be restrictive, but not the extreme case.
I believe that one thing that could be put in, which I would agree with, if there was a pay anything you want for a specific mod, if it added enough value, if there's enough effort put into it, it's basically like putting a donate button on there. It defaults to like 0, but you can put a number in there if you feel like you want to donate. It could say under the description, you can download this for free. If you want to donate, put a number in the box that you feel is fair, and hit the button, and then they get a little cut out of it. Um, that type of revenue stream is not going to bring a whole lot to the developer, but it would be a fair way to do it. And I believe that Gabe Newell said that is coming. I mean, the whole pay anything you want thing. So I don't know, man. It's something that we're just gonna have to sit back and watch because both of us are really not involved in it, unless it comes to one of the games that we're playing, and then we're gonna be like, I wonder how I would feel if the game that I played a lot, if it came to if the workshop stuff, what games I'm gonna have to go through my list and make some projections here. Um, Gosh, there's not too many. How about Don't Starve Together or something like that? It wouldn't really work for that either. Maybe it's for like a 99 cent. It's kind of something they had. They had some funny little mods on the workshop for that. Somehow I don't feel like the developers would agree with having things on there for pay. So I don't know, man. I'm really confused. what games would even integrate this. You have any? Actually, I know a game that might do it. Maybe Tabletop Simulator, but a lot of the people on Tabletop Simulator are breaking copyright on their own. So there you go. There's a lot of like I don't know. There's Monopoly and I just
if people were
Pictionary.
to try charging for that content, that would. I mean, it really does need to be regulated to some extent, but
Oh man, that would make me sad if some of those cool games that you can play on there become like a thing of the past. Because that was kind of the charm. They would just People just have to get more creative and make a knockoff, you know. But I don't know. I'm not
yeah.
sure if you did you play that with us. Did you own that game?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Basically, you play any kind of tabletop game that you want. And the things that we played a lot were like Cards Against Humanity, and we tried playing Monopoly. That was a big bust. We played like Snakes and Ladders and silly stuff. Sorry, played that a couple times. It's a good time, and you can flip the table. But I don't know. I'm gonna see how this shakes out. I wonder when they'll announce it for every publisher to deal with. Seems like a lot of headache. A lot of
Yeah,
headache.
I don't know if it'll be a large scale, open the floodgates, or if it'll be a slow thing that rolls out over time.
They're dealing with enough flack as it is with one game. Holy shit. I I saw the announcement, and then I saw some tweets popping up from friends, and I was like, "Wait, why is everyone so mad?" Cuz I didn't understand it. I kind of I made a general statement that, well, I know people who spend a lot of time making mods, and certainly I feel like their work is worth money. So I'm cool with it if they get a cut, whatever it is, because these guys spend a lot of time and energy on their projects, and I think it's worth money. You know, whether people should be forced to pay for it, I don't know. But it turns out it was more so the greedy nature of the uh, of the cut that Valve and the publisher slash developers were going to get from it. So I don't know. There's several arguments that can be made, and there's plenty of people that have gone way in depth with it. But for me, I'm glad that they stuck their neck out there and did this, because they really don't have anything to prove to anyone. They can do whatever they want. They could pander to the gamers and do something that helps them, or they could stick their neck out there for the people who add value to the games by making mods in the workshop. I think it's pretty brave. Not that brave, but it's a step in the right direction.
I agree that it's a step in the right direction, that people's time and effort, it gives them this extra avenue that they didn't have before.
I guess we'll close that topic. I don't know what else I can really say about it, to be honest. That's where I'm at right now. I'd have a different perspective if I actually had ever created a mod myself. I'd probably feel even more strongly on that side. Unless I was one of those people who created a mod and got it stolen. Then I might feel a little salty. I don't know. Probably a little salt on that one. Now, at the beginning of our show here today, we kind of teased the fact that you had a motive for joining Twitch, and you had a goal in mind, and you, by all measures, reached that goal. Would you like to talk about a little bit about your Kilimanjaro trip. Just kind of an how you actually came to um, like how did you get involved with the Amnesty International?
Sure. Well, I wouldn't say that this is the project that had me that led to me joining Twitch.
Right. Yeah. That's
I
a
will
wrong.
actually I will actually go into how I came to join Twitch because I think it's quite funny actually.
Okay.
Um, is that I recently moved to a new city to start studying, and when I met my neighbor, my old neighbor. He was a great guy, and he was really, really, really into DayZ, and he helped administrate a server, and he's always trying to get me into it. And one day I looked up some YouTube videos because back then I watched a lot of YouTube, which I don't do anymore because Twitch is completely surpassed that for me. And I watched a guy called Hybrid Panda, and I watched his YouTube videos and discovered that he would be in a large-scale DayZ Survivor event soon called the Survivor Games. It was either number 2 or 3, I believe. And I didn't even create an account initially. I didn't interact with anyone. I just kind of lurked in the shadows and watched. And that's again, that's how I met Smack and the Blacklist and the teams that I'm a part of today, and all the things that I do within the community. Um, so yeah, it's kind of funny that the reason I began my journey on Twitch and down the path that I took was because of, well, shout out to Hyper Panda and to my neighbor.
Yeah, and Hybrid Panda is someone who I've interacted with in the past and is excellent content creator. I'll just say that, just in short. Um, yeah, you're. I guess I jumped the gun a little bit there. I'm glad that you did explain that though, because everyone has their own story. I got in a little bit earlier. Didn't know anybody. Didn't even know that there was a community behind Twitch. I thought it was like the whole chat thing, talking to other people. I was never really a chat room guy, so that was foreign to me, and I kind of grew into it. I really found that I liked it. It's evidenced by the friends that I keep online now. Pretty much all people from Twitch. A few people from when I used to play Counter Strike all the time, but 95% Twitch people. So it's kind of a social networking site for gamers in a way. It's just a lot more entertaining than, I don't know, Facebook. But yeah, I was trying to transition into talking about your Kilimanjaro journey, but I wasn't sure even how to get started. How did that all start? Who was the person, if you don't mind saying, who was the person that got you? You don't have to say their name if you don't want to. Who's the person that you knew that kind of got you into um, what you were doing?
I wouldn't say that there was a person. Um, I'd supported Amnesty International in the past, and I'd signed up for their newsletter. And one day I got an email that said, "Hey, would you like to take part in this? Would you like to climb a mountain?" Something I didn't have any experience in doing. And I'm still not an expert by any stretch, but I just decided to sign up on a whim, and that's something I've done before as well in the past. I had an opportunity to study in Turkey, which was a really eye-opening experience. My first trip internationally, and that really I got the bug for traveling and meeting new people and just getting out of my comfort zone and just experiencing the world.
It seems like opportunities kind of land in your lap and you don't let them pass by. You're 23 now.
Yeah, I'm 23. I do take every opportunity that I can. I'm always open to new experiences.
Huh? Well, it seems seems like you've done a lot in your young young years here. I'm kind of laughing because I'm thinking about how many countries I've even been to. I've been out of the U.S. once. I've been to Canada, from up in up in the old cold north. You could say here in the U.S. So, but you've been to. So, were you born in Australia?
Yeah, I was born in Australia. Both my parents are Australian. My grandparents are English, so nothing too interesting there.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't start traveling until was I 19 or 20, and my first trip was, like I said, I went to Turkey, and then I extended my trip actually 3 or 4 times. After I finished my studies in Turkey, I traveled to Romania, Bulgaria, um, where else? A few other places. It's a lot of a blur, really. And more recently, I've been to Tanzania and Kenya.
Wow. So, what does your family think about all of that? Were they supportive?
They were incredibly supportive. Yeah, my parents have actually never been out of the country, and they always, as parents do, they're worried all the time when I'm overseas. I try to check in when I can, but yeah, I guess they've always supported me in anything that I've done.
Wow. So that was a couple of things I did not know. So Amnesty International Australia, you were on their email list, so to speak, and you got an email saying, "Hey, do you want to climb a mountain?" And you thought, "Hey, maybe. Why not? Sure."
That's pretty much the extent of it. Yeah. I tend to make snap decisions. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing at this point, but I'm happy with the way that things have panned out.
Yeah, I had thought maybe you were involved in some local causes and you had had kind of signed up through kind of with some friends, something like that. But that's a little bit more. It's a little bit more impressive. I think that if I got an email that said that, I'd be like, wait, what? You want me to do what? You want me to climb a mountain for what? But I mean, it seems like a great cause. So what does I don't think I've ever got an email but like that before. By the way, I think I get a lot of spam messages, but none of them ever asked me to do that. It seems like a great idea to raise money for this cause. Now, can you explain a little bit about kind of why you are so passionate about supporting Amnesty International? Kind of like just like what do they stand for that really uh, makes you want to climb a mountain for it?
Well, they operate all around the world in various countries, and they promote human rights, and they encourage governments to respect human rights and the sanctity of life and all kinds of things. And they inform people about all kinds of unfortunate events that happen all around the world every day.
Yeah, it does say on here, please help me raise vital funds to hold warlords and dictators accountable, encourage governments to respect human rights, like you said, free prisoners of conscience. What does that mean? Free prisoners of conscience. Not sure what that means. Promote respect for indigenous peoples and boldly defend human rights in every corner of the world. If there's anybody that is against that, it'd be hard pressed to find them. It does seem like a great cause. So, uh, did you know any of the people that you climbed with? Did you get to meet any of them before, like months before, or did you kind of meet them during the trip?
No, I met them on the way. Well, I met some of them on the way. I didn't meet many of them until I'd actually arrived. Um, I believe I met most of them in Bangkok on the way over, but I hadn't met anyone beforehand. I didn't sign up with a friend or anything like that. And I actually had to take a couple flights because I lived quite far away from everyone else. I had to
Yeah.
take a couple flights just to meet up with everyone else.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, my geography not so good. I know what Mount Kilimanjaro is. I know roughly where it is, but yeah, according to the always correct source, Wikipedia, but I'll just read it off of your page. 5,895 meters tall, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania is the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. Parentheses, rather than being part of a mountain range. So it's one of the largest climbs, right? That people actually
It's yeah,
people
it,
that
it
people
is yeah.
attempt. Yeah. Wow.
It's not on the scale of something like Everest, which is much larger, but
Yeah.
is part of a mountain range. I don't know why they make that distinction.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Tall is tall to me, but
Yeah, but it is Kilimanjaro may not be the biggest, but it is a very large mountain and was a totally new experience for me.
I mean, regardless of the size, it's still it your body reacts to changes in oxygen in a certain way, so you have to be cautious to not scale too fast, or if you're did you have to go through a physical to make sure you were able to make the climb?
Yeah, it was required that I got some medical checks done before I left for my trip, and thankfully everything checked out and they let me go.
I do have actually have a question here from Twitter that fits in. I was going to wait till the end to go through these questions, but this one just fits into what we're saying here. So, Philanthropy 87 on Twitter asks, "How long were you training, and was there any rock climbing or all hiking?"
Okay, so the first part is something I'm not particularly proud of, is that I didn't prepare as much as I should have for this trip. I am now, and I was then when I left, quite easily in the worst shape of my life. I could have done a lot more to prepare, and I would advise anyone who does take on this kind of trip that you do prepare as much as you can.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you. You're young, so you can handle it. I mean, even though at 23 I was in kind of bad shape, I probably felt like, well, I'm in good enough shape to like go play some basketball for a couple hours. So I'm fine, I didn't have to constantly train to keep myself even just maintain how I looked. I just like it's like just kind of had fun, So I don't really blame
That's
you.
true.
I don't really blame you, and I don't know. Up until this stage of my life, I probably wouldn't have taken it that seriously. So, but anyways, yeah. So you didn't train much at all beforehand, and did that kind of make you nervous going into it?
Absolutely, it did. Yeah. Once I got there, I felt a little bit out of my depth. Um, the first day was quite tough. From day one, my legs were really struggling, and I was sweating a lot. I didn't have any difficulty breathing or anything like that, and that was the main thing I was quite nervous about because I grew up with asthma, and I didn't want to like have a panic attack and not be taking in oxygen or anything like that.
Yeah, that's So did you have your inhaler with you and everything?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't. There was some. There are some medications that supposedly help prevent you from experiencing altitude sickness, but they're unproven, and I didn't take any of that stuff. But once you get up there,
You kind of just work with what you've
like
got because you're not going
yeah,
you're not going to back out now. You got to go for it.
no, absolutely. And while I say that training is important and that I should have trained more, when you're there, it's really there's no kind of training that you can do at home. I mean, there are actually altitude gyms and things like that. I didn't have access to one of those, but it's really something different entirely that you can't fully prepare for. And as for the second part of the question, was there any rock climbing or was it all hiking? Most of the trip, which was the 5 or 6 days up and 2 days down, it was mostly hiking. Yeah, there's no technical climbing like with belays and ropes and all that stuff. It's just trekking along.
S-
There were some rocky parts towards the end where we had to scale over some large boulders, but there was, like I said, it wasn't really a technical climb, but it was still a challenging experience.
So when it came to expenses for equipment and airfare and all of that, was that did they fit the bill for that, or did you have to pay out of pocket for a lot of that stuff?
All of my equipment and all of my travel expenses I actually paid for myself. And while we're talking about the fundraising that I did, every cent of that went to Amnesty International, and
Of course, of
none of
course.
that was for use. None of
No,
that was for use with my trip. Yeah,
no, of course. I was just curious. You can't just. You probably didn't have this type of gear laying around. You probably had to invest in some equipment. They probably suggested some equipment for you to bring along. I would imagine.
I did. They were quite helpful. They gave me an entire long list of things that I needed or probably should have, and I needed to. I got the equipment that I needed in order to take part in the trip because um, I needed to be prepared for everything going in.
All right. So you're going to a foreign country somewhere where you hadn't been before, meeting all of these people that you're going to scale a mountain with, and feeling a little bit nervous at the time. How was the flight? Uh, were you kind of feeling the butterflies?
No, flights is something I just kind of zone out in flights. The few times that I've been out of the country, they have been very long flights. Uh, to Turkey was 26 hours or something.
Wow.
And this one I had quite a few more stopovers, so it was actually more than 30 hours one way. So I didn't have a lot of, I just kind of, I read some books, I did some sleeping, boring airport stuff, nothing too exciting. And I wasn't really worried about the trip because I knew we were going to have a briefing and things like that after we arrived.
And I saw your tweet from the day before I think you started your climb. I think from your hotel room, something to the effect of, "Here's my digs for the next day." Um, Probably much less glamorous going forward. I'm not even sure. You were kind of unsure how things were going to turn out once the trip started. A lot of variables.
Yeah. I arrived and they set me up with a fantastic hotel room. It was incredibly comfortable, but I was only there for a few hours really. We had dinner, went to sleep, and then got up quite early to make our way up to the mountain. Yeah, and yeah, it wasn't what you would say comfortable living.
Yeah, for sure. So did you? You said how many days going up? Did you say 6 days going up and two down? Did I get that math right?
Yeah, it was
Six.
it was five. It was kind of I say 5 to 6 because it was 5 days to get to the base camp before we started our attempt at the summit. But the summit
Oh, okay.
attempt actually, we left at 10 o'clock in the evening and didn't get back until midday the next day.
Wow. So what's that like out there in the elements with essentially strangers climbing a mountain? Did you feel like you were the most out? You said out of your depth. Did you feel like you were the most out of your depth, or did you feel like you guys were kind of all equals?
I think there was only one person in the group, no, two people in the group, the other being our doctor who had actually had an climbing experience. So we're all pretty much in the same boat in that regard.
Okay, but you obviously had some guides that went along with you, right?
Yeah, we did. These guys were absolute professionals. We had not only guides, we had cooks who traveled with us, we had porters who carried our heavy luggage.
Wow.
Um, People just, it was a very organized affair and they took care of us really well.
I didn't want to say Sherpas because I wasn't sure how that whole situation works, but it sounds like you guys were well taken care of throughout the whole thing. But still, the physical nature of what you're doing is something that it's not like running on a flat surface for a long distance. It's not like, I don't know, riding a bicycle for a long distance, even if you are going up and down elevations in that sense. You're putting your body through something that it's generally not used to. It's not used to high. You're probably not used to that high of altitudes. Where you are from, is that generally a high or low altitude region?
It's low. The entirety of Australia is pretty flat. There's not a whole lot um, in terms of tall mountains going
Yeah,
around.
I can tell you, coming from low altitude to living where I live in Colorado, and um, it gets you. It may take a little bit, but especially if you're doing physical activity, I'll tell anybody that visits Colorado, if you're gonna, I don't know, indulge in some alcoholic drinks, just take it easy because your blood is different. So happens to athletes and people who come here and drink. They kind of get, if they're not smart, they get messed up pretty good. It's not hard to get altitude sickness.
Yeah, there wasn't too much drinking taking place on the mountain, although there
No.
was some, admittedly. But
No, I can't imagine. I'm just yeah, just speaking to the point of altitude change is something not to be taken lightly. So
no,
um,
not at all. So basically, I think we all experienced some symptoms at some point. I would wake up every morning with a headache that wouldn't go away until we set off and got moving. Really, that was a daily thing, but nothing too drastic. In the later stages, I experienced quite a bit of dizziness and feeling quite disoriented, but nothing serious, nothing that warranted going back down. There were other members of the group who didn't feel very comfortable. One of them didn't leave the camp to attempt climbing to the summit. She really wasn't feeling well.
oh wow,
Um, another, I was walking up the mountain with a porter alongside me who was taking really good care of me because I had been struggling quite a lot of the way, but just pushing through it. And she was asking, how much further, how much further. And the guide leader said, I'm not going to tell you how much further because you're not going to like it and you're gonna give up. But eventually, she cracked, and yeah, we weren't even halfway up at that stage. It was a really really long night.
wow. Well, it's not for everybody, and if you don't have experience doing it, you never know how your body's going to react. Sometimes your body just tells you no, and you just can't do it. And but a lot of times it's a mental block. It says I don't want to, or I just people get kind of panicked and they're breathing. They start breathing heavily, and then it's kind of all over at that point.
Yeah,
So
I would say I struggled with that stuff more. I was focusing on my breathing quite a lot in the early days of the trip because that was something I was worried about because I'd never been up to a significant altitude before. So I was thinking, when you think about breathing, it becomes something that's very, very difficult that you
yep.
just do every day without thinking.
Uh huh.
But later on, that was the least of my troubles. I just kind of, it was, you would focus on the feet of the person in front of you on the way up. And that's pretty much how I got through it.
Wow. So at what point during the journey did you notice the air getting a little thinner? It was harder to breathe, or did you kind of acclimate and you kind of felt the same amount of comfort or uncomfortable, I guess, uh, as you went?
Um, that was, like I said, minor discomfort in the mornings, but aside from that, it felt pretty much business as usual. I felt like
Okay,
I adapted quite well
it's
up until the
right.
final trek to the top. That was where I really began having trouble with my vision and being dizzy and things like that. But that eventually went away.
Yeah, I guess they've been the first climb of Mount Kilimanjaro. Um, was, I believe, 1912, something like that. I gotta look this up, but yeah, it's yeah, first ascent of the highest summit was made on the 29th of July 1912. So been doing it for a while, and they kind of know how much the body can take. They kind of have a plan in place, and they have a base camp where you guys go to, and then for your last day, that's the summit, right? That's the last goal.
Well, it was the last day of the climb. After that, like I said, we had dinner. We left at 10 p.m. We climbed until 7:30 in the morning, I believe, is when we reached the peak. And then by the time we climbed down, it was 10:30, 11 in the morning. At which point we had to get some sleep and then get up in 2 hours to leave to vacate the camp for the next group coming in.
Hmm.
And we spent 2 days climbing down.
Wow.
The whole mountain is administrated really well. There are check-ins at each point where you would sign your name, and they would monitor your progress, how quickly you're doing things, and um, making sure that everything is going smoothly and as it should, that nobody is getting ahead of themselves.
So what did you find that was what was the most challenging point of the trip? Was it making it to the summit? Was that it? You probably had a bit of adrenaline going at that point.
Yeah, it's difficult to recall most of that night, really. It had been an exhausting trip overall, and that was the final push. So it was all running on adrenaline and instincts, I think, and just pushing through it as best we could. And that's, like I said, that's not something I could have trained for at home.
No, and just I mean, if you were to work out so much that you made yourself really lean, that might put yourself at a disadvantage. Because at certain points, I'm sure you were way more expending calories than you were taking in as far as what you guys had to eat.
Yeah, we ate quite frequently and quite a lot, but I mean, and would snack along the way, but you just couldn't take in enough. Um, Exerting energy at those higher altitudes, it's just a different experience. Like you would be worn out just getting up in the morning and going to the bathroom. You would feel out of breath.
Oh wow, yeah, I can't even imagine. And there was different. Kilimanjaro has different kind of climates as you go along, right? Or different. What's the word for it? There was different environments that you went through as you climbed. Is that right?
Yeah, many of them.
So what did you find was the most fascinating about that whole experience, seeing the different environments as you climbed? I can't think of the word. I hate myself for not knowing the word that I'm looking for. But there's is there not a, a rainforest, kind of a desert ish area, a savanna, and
Yeah, so the first day of the trip was spent trekking through the rainforest in quite warm temperatures because it was uh, during the high season. It was summer, just as it is here in Australia. Well,
right,
was it's not now, but
yeah,
so it was, yeah. And then as you progress through the trip, it would slowly you would get higher. It would get quite cold. So it's yeah, a whole range of temperatures and climates that you're experiencing.
For those
Um,
who, I'm sorry to interrupt you. For those who don't know, when did your trip start, and then how does that relate to like when summer starts for you guys there in Australia? Like,
well, I left on the 19th of February, and summer starts in December. Yeah.
okay, gotcha. So you're kind of at the end of summer almost, right? By the
Yeah.
time you got back, gotcha. Okay, so you made it through the rainforest on the first day, and then what kind of did you guys make clothing changes then? You kind of like were I don't know, in maybe like a long sleeve shirt or something beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started out wearing t-shirts and a hat, trying to shield myself from the sun. And the sun's actually quite prominent throughout the entire trip. As you go up, the UV actually gets stronger, so you've got to make sure you're always wearing your sun cream and things.
Hmm.
But yeah, we experienced a range of things from hot, sweaty rainforest to it was raining at one point and it was kind of marshy, really difficult, and some people fell in some mud. That was a highlight in a way. But yeah, we changed. We had to bring quite a lot of gear with us for the
Yeah,
changing climates.
I mean, not only is it high altitude, but also changing climates. That's something that people see mountain climbing. Usually, the pictures are of snow and the person, on the top of the mountain. But it's really about the journey that's the challenge. The summit itself is a bit of a smaller portion of the journey, right? And in the grand scheme of things, it took a lot less time than the rest of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It took less time, but it was quite. It's on a different level. That final push is just on a whole different level.
Is it
But
is
the journey as a whole, yeah,
a bit of a steeper climb once you get towards the top? Is that
it really was, yeah.
yeah? Because I'm looking at just even like an overview of it, right? And it looks quite steep once you get towards the top. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy the people that have the job of helping those people climb. They do that professionally and they do it kind of consistently. They're kind of acclimated to the altitude and everything, but still, what a job to have.
Yeah, yeah, it is something that's it's quite special, and um, I would say they build up kind of a tolerance to it, but I don't think that they're immune to the effects overall. They do it really, really frequently. Like the group that went up with us would, they'd maybe get a day of rest, maybe not, and then they'd go up with the next group. But there was, I believe, a limit on how many times they could do it in a given time period. There are rules in place for that.
So, according to the statistics, about 20,000 people attempt to climb Kilimanjaro each year, and one third do not reach the summit. So, you, my friend, are in the top percentage of those who do successfully reach the summit. Now, did you take any photos while you were on the trip?
Personally, I didn't bring my camera because it was a bit too bulky in my bag. I got a few snaps on my phone, but I was largely trying to preserve the battery.
Right.
Actually, funny, I didn't think there would be a place to charge my phone, but oddly enough, at base camp they have some generators and a phone charging point
Wow, that's
that I
fun.
wasn't aware of.
So if you were aware
Um,
of that, you may have snapped a few more photos.
I could have, yeah. Thankfully, there were a lot of people in my group who were avid photographers and took every opportunity to take photos and videos and all that fun stuff that now I've got a collection of, thanks to those people.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you have any specific stories of anything that happened during this time? Anything that close encounters, anything like that?
Perhaps a couple. Some of my fondest memories were actually in the evenings or on our one rest day was just sitting out and hanging in the mess tent and playing cards with the guides and the porters and the cooks who we wouldn't necessarily be interacting with when we're climbing. We're just in our group and we're with the guides, and the other guys go up ahead and they carry all the heavy gear, and just meeting those people and finding out their stories and playing cards, just something simple like that was one of my favorite things of the entire trip.
Wow. So, did you see any sort of? I mean, is there any wildlife that you encountered like at any point?
Yeah, so we came across monkeys in the rainforest. There was a chameleon on the way up on the second day, but once you get a bit higher, I mean, there are birds and things, but
It's really
um,
nothing
flying
that
overhead. But other than that, yeah, there's
nothing.
no
Yeah,
mosquitoes don't go that high. There's no insects, or there's not much wildlife at all. No.
just you and the mountain. Well, my friend, I don't think I'll see myself climbing a mountain anytime soon, but I'm sure that at my age, I would definitely need to bone up on my training a little bit. I guess I have a bit of a leg up being that I live in higher altitudes by default, but it doesn't really help as much. I don't know. So, but yeah, 5,000 and eight 5,895 meters above sea level.
Yeah.
Mount
So for
Kilimanjaro.
those of you who aren't familiar with the metric system, that's over 19,000 feet.
Yeah, about three and a half, roughly 3.25 times the altitude that I live in here, and probably 6,000, 6,000, 6 times the altitude that normal people live in, something like that. Pretty crazy. Would you do it again if you had the opportunity?
I would, yeah, in a heartbeat.
Wow. Anything that we missed? Any interesting tidbits from your journey? Any one that you'd want to shout out from your journey that was your favorite? Someone who really um, who was awesome. I don't know. I'm running out of words.
I would be too afraid of forgetting someone. Honestly, everyone that I met on that trip was just incredible human beings.
Oh, that's cool, man. It seems like something that well, judging by how many people actually went in. Now, was there multiple groups that went through Amnesty International Australia, or was it just your group?
It was just our group. We met
Wow,
other groups along the way, but they weren't part of our trip,
wow. So
so to speak.
you're one of a few that actually did it, and to date you've raised $3,241 for your cause, which is pretty significant. And I'm going to post a link to this again because people can still support this cause. Is that right?
It's true. Yeah, I believe it's open for a few more days.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe it's good timing that we had this discussion and we can see if we can raise a little bit more money for the cause because it definitely something that everyone can relate to, and it's a important topic around the world. I think with the dissemination of information and the way people communicate, uh, it's it's always been an issue, but it's just been kind of covered up or glossed over. But it's definitely more at the forefront of people's thoughts nowadays. Human rights. It's not convenient to talk about it or see it on the news, but it's there. You can't ignore it, you know. And I'm not prepared to have a discussion on human rights right now, but uh, yeah, I'm just trying to say that it's a good cause, and if people have anything extra that they wanted to donate, it all goes. It all helps. Even $1, $5, $10, it all helps.
Absolutely, any amount. And just to anyone who has already contributed, including yourself, I just want to say thanks, because without you guys supporting me along the way, I never would have made it that far.
Oh, absolutely, man. Um, I didn't. I guess my brain kind of stopped at that point because I was thinking a lot about the cause. But I got one more question about your trip. What was the what was the first thing that you did when you came back? Second part, when you were leaving to come back, what was it that you looked forward to? I guess maybe you could answer the second one first. What did you look forward to? What was the first thing you did when you got back home?
What was I looking forward to upon coming back?
Yeah.
I don't know, really. There wasn't a whole lot to look forward to.
Not a lot to look forward
Um,
to.
no,
You were in
I'm
the
quite.
moment still, and you were kind of. Did you want to stay longer?
Yeah, I would have loved to. Like I said, on past trips, I've extended them beyond the scope of what I set out to do. I would have loved to do that here, but that wasn't possible for me at the time. I'm quite content to be living on a mountain. To be honest, it was a really just a wonderful experience.
You're a bit of a world traveler. Now, I'll be honest with you. I try to put myself in your shoes. I feel like if I'm away from home for a week, I'm ready to come home. I'm ready to get back into my routine. I've never broken out of that bubble, but you seem to be a person who embraces people and experiences like that, and you just want to immerse yourself in it, and you want to. I don't know. It seems like you're a lot more open-minded to things like that than I would be, and I applaud you for it. I that was not the answer I expected. Actually, you were
I don't
exhausted.
know. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um, Now you have some background as a writer. Is that right? Am I wrong in
Somewhat. Writing is something
somewhat?
I've always enjoyed. I've spent the past few years studying journalism at university. I also done work in. I've been studying international relations as well and done some research work with the university that thankfully I got paid for, because being a student is tough at times.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, so you welcome any opportunity to travel abroad and meet people and have new experiences. It's kind of a generic
Pretty
way to.
much. It's not something I ever consciously set out to do, but it's just something that it just kind of came to me naturally. It's something I really enjoy and hope to continue doing.
Yeah, so if this comes up again, if they have another trip, you're pretty much going to throw yourself into it. Uh,
There's a very good chance of that, yeah.
Unless there's something that holds you back. Which doesn't sound like it sounds like you're ready to go, but you still kind of want to base yourself around your family. You still kind of want to live where you live in the region, but you're okay with traveling. Is that right? I sound like a lawyer. I don't know why I asked the question that way. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I don't know. No, I have some family nearby, but the only person I really stay in contact with a great deal is my brother, and we like we grew up playing video games together and having
Okay, cool.
similar interests, and it's kind of like one of your friends. You don't see them for a long time, and you meet up and you pick up where you left off. It's kind of how I am with my family. I'm not sure how they feel about that, but that's just the way I've been, I guess. Somewhat of a free spirit, but not entirely, I guess.
Wow. So the trip in total was somewhere about a week. See, somehow in my mind, I saw what you had to do and I thought, okay, it's going to be 3 or 4 days. But I always think my thought process was so linear. I didn't even think about the descent. I thought about, okay, he's up there, and I don't know, he's going to teleport back down. I don't know. Somehow I thought it was only going to take 3 to 4 days, but after a week, doing that, and you still didn't want to go home. That somehow just sticks in my mind. I think that speaks a lot about you as a person, and how you react to situations like that. I think a good portion of people would want to hightail it home, and they'd be ready for that flight. It's very interesting. Very interesting. And I do have one question. I have one other question that somebody tweeted at me. If you don't mind, we had a hashtag on Twitter, Ask Mellow, for people. Someone that I think people would like to know. Here we go. From Jacob Goldner. Mellow and Dan. Hey, wait a minute. This wasn't supposed to include me. Mellow and Dan, what was the most defining point in your life? Example: if it didn't happen, you wouldn't be who you are. So basically, what was the defining point in your life that made you who you are today? If it didn't happen, you wouldn't be you.
That's a tough call. Would you?
That is a tough call. You want me to try to answer?
Are you gonna go ahead and answer this one too?
I don't know. I was reading the question, not thinking. Let me think for a second. Boy, I had a bit of a failure when I first became a young adult, and it stuck with me for a long time. I had failed relationships. I dropped out of college. I just took whatever job, just stuck with it. Eventually it turned into something I could make into a career. And then there was a point in my life where I said, and at the same time it affected my family relationships, the way I interacted with my friends. I was very closed. I still haven't fully recovered from it, but there was a breaking point for me, which was in 2012. And I said, screw it, I got to make a change, because what am I even doing? I was just like blindly living for like 10 years. So at the age of 30, I said, holy shit, I got to make a change. There's my turning point. From then, I became more open. I got my life somewhat back into order. I'm still kind of picking up the pieces of that whole situation. I guess it's a long story, but there was my defining moment. That's it, pretty much. And, I moved closer to family here in Colorado and kind of restarted my life, because I left a job that I made decent money at, and I basically put myself back on the bottom of the totem pole with no schooling, no real meaningful job experience. So I don't know. I'm still way happier than I was before that. So, hey, there you go.
That's good, man. I'm glad. For me, I don't know. It's not an easy thing to pinpoint something that's a defining moment in your life. Or I would have to say it's probably, in general, the way that I grew up in the household that I did. When I was starting school, my father was on a work site, and he injured himself, and he's been on a disability pension ever since. And so, my mother worked really, really hard to support myself, my brother, and my father. And I guess growing up, we didn't have a lot of opportunities, I guess. My first computer was an old hand-me-down DOS machine, and had a Super Nintendo, but there was no way to get games. or anything like that. It was all just kind of, like I said, we lived week to week, and that's kind of how I still live my life, I guess. I'll take a trip, but I don't really think about the long term. With in terms of finances, I've always gone after things that I enjoy because I've been lucky to be able to do that, I suppose.
So you would say that the way that you were brought up kind of defined how you um, have transitioned into adult life, and you haven't been at it that long. To be fair, I'm 33 years old. Yes, 33, and you are a decade my junior. So that's a decade old younger. Yeah. So there's gonna be probably more defining moments as you get older, but it doesn't seem. It seems like those who do have a challenging upbringing just make more interesting people. That's just how it is, man. It's if everything's handed to you, you don't even know what struggle is, and you just I don't know. You're just kind of you can become like a strange person who treats your interactions with people. You don't see people as meaningful because they don't have anything that you need. You get everything that you want. It's just, it becomes a strange relationship when someone isn't brought up the right way. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and like with this climb, it was a once in a lifetime experience. And so, like I said, I would just take that opportunity because of my past experiences. I mean, my father, he pretty much ended his working life and his career, all that stuff, when he was just a little bit older than I am now. Um, and he would have loved to do something like this, but it's just not feasible for him. And I think, what if I didn't take this chance? What if I didn't go ahead and do this? And what if I could never do that in future? So yeah, I just go ahead and take every opportunity I get.
That's not a bad way to live, my friend. I'm sure it's going to serve you well in the future as well. Well, that was a kind of a heavy question. I wasn't really expecting to have to answer it as well, but I did what I could. Um, well, I hope we can have a conversation like this in the future, and I thank you for being patient with me throughout this process. And for those that are listening to this, if you actually made it to the end, I thank you. Um, if you have any feedback for me regarding the podcast that I'm going to be working on, it's something that I started out of the want to, not the need, because I don't need to do this, the want to have a meaningful discussion outside of Twitch. It can be about Twitch, but can also be about other things. And if it becomes a live podcast, I don't know if I'm going to host it on Twitch because I might want to approach topics that don't relate to gaming, and it might be kind of awkward if it's a really either meaningful or strange discussion about something. I don't want to be bound by just gaming because I have a lot of other opinions and thoughts on things. So, that being said, I guess I'm going to end things. I'd like to thank our guest today, MellowNebula. Thanks for sharing your awesome story. And if it wasn't for just having this recorded, I would have definitely had this conversation anyways. So thanks to you, sir.
Thanks, Dan, for having me on. Thanks to whoever's listening. It's been great, and I think that it could be something.
Could be a seed.
Could be a good thing.
Could be a seed of something here that we can grow and expand. I'm gonna need some help from people to improve, but should be fun. And if people want to contact you, they can find you at twitch.tv/MellowNebula. That is MELLOWNEBULA, and also same name on Twitter, MellowNebula. Any other?
That's true. I'm also on Reddit. I moderate the Twitch subreddit as well, and that's another way that you can contact me.
Or just tweet at Twitch support. No, just kidding. You might find him on there as well, as he's helping people to keep their Twitch streams up and running. All right, I think we're going to close things off here. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on Twitch. Bye, everybody.